snatched Nile. France took the West. Germany grabbed land like it passed a test. No language in common, just rule and divide. Fed us their flags, made us swallow our pride. They taught us to hate what we saw in the mirror. Now we pray to their gods just to feel clearer. Hey, we were even there. Split the bloodline. Names not our own. Borders like chains. Borders like chains. Still today, we carry the pain. Who gave them the right? Response ain't body. Who let them rewrite? Not our bodies cold. Who drew the line? Through our soul. Colonial goals. What they stole, we'll reclaim whole. We are the story they tried to control. But memories are drum and truth don't sleep. Our roots run deep where their cuts ran steep. Now we rise with fire in our name, burning their maps, reclaiming our flame. Burning their maps, reclaiming our flame. You carved us up. We rise again. One Africa. Yeah.
Give me a second. Let me just reset the screen. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm okay. You're good there. You're looking good there. Okay, greetings, everybody. Welcome to another Alkebulan Awakening series in collaboration with Gunboat. My name, as always, is Oladile Dosumum. I'm the founder of the Emerging Alkebulan. And for those of you that follow us all the time, you know what we do. We're about decolonizing our minds and awakening our consciousness. Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Undergo.
Karibuni, asanteni kwa kuwa nasi. That's welcome and thank you for being with us. That is Kiswahili, otherwise known as Kiubuntu. We are renaming our languages. I'm looking forward to this conversation. This conversation needs to be heard from an African perspective, and I'm happy that we have our sister here today to have it with us. Thank you.
Okay, my sister, I know you don't like introducing yourself, but here we go. As always, Dr. Khanyisile Litchfield Tshabalala. You put KKK there, sis. Is that deliberate?
No.
Did you see that? Did you see that?
I see.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, did you see? You made a mistake with your spelling.
Listen. What are the ancestors telling us?
Not
What are the ancestors telling us? Who are we dealing with?
yes.
That is so funny, man.
But
Okay, guys.
it is who we are going. That's the enemy we're going to be dealing with today, actually.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay,
hello
guys.
to all the
For today.
people
Go on, sis. Go on.
who has tuned in, and special hello to all my MK comrades who I know have tuned in and will still listen to this, and to the rest of the continent all over. It is not because Christ has awakened, but because we have 3 African states who are fighting for self-determination, national integrity. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Also have Iran fighting for herself and saying, not under our watch. If you kill our leader, continua. So it is a beautiful Sunday based on that.
Absolutely,
Thank you, Ola.
absolutely. Okay, you're welcome, sis. Today we got two topics actually. The first topic we're going to be talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, like my sister said. My sister was on an interview with RT News, a Russian TV, this morning, and she had an interview with them because if you follow the social media, if you follow the media, what the framing has been about the ethnic cleansing of a particular people by the Burkina Faso government. They're basically saying that they're violating human rights. And when we talk about human rights, who actually violates human rights? It's definitely not us. So the hypocrisy that they put out there, and my sister is basically countering that narrative. So for that reason, before we go into that topic, I'm just going to play that clip. She was on that interview today. Listen to that clip. We're probably not going to play all of it, but just listen to the gist of it, and then we're going to discuss it. And then from there, we're going to go to the other topic because they're all linked together. But when it comes to Africa and our sovereignty and our self-determination, we need to be sharing our own narrative. We need to actually say it the way it is. We don't let the Muzungus or the Westerns tell the story for us. We do it ourselves. So we're countering that narrative. Okay, I'm going to play that video now.
Now let's discuss this issue with member of the South African National Assembly, Dr. Khanyisile Litchfield Tshabalala, joining me right now. Dr. Tshabalala, welcome to the program right now. So what is your view about this accusation of ethnic cleansing of Fulani communities by Burkina Faso army? How grounded and objective do you find this report?
Thank you so much, Russia Today, for having me, and hello to all your viewers, especially members of Mukhondo Wesizwe who have tuned in right now. Look, my first inclination on any accusation is who's the accuser. Human Rights Watch is a US-based organization. It is not government funded, which means we have no scrutiny over their funding and what that and the perimeters that govern that funding. But one of the funders particularly interests me, George Soros, Open Society Foundation. We know that he's a ruthless capitalist. He stands for neoliberalism. He stands for neocolonialism in Africa. I mean, he single-handedly led to the fall of communism in Eastern Europe under the revolutions that were called the color revolutions. So for me, Human Rights Watch is not credible enough to make an accusation of human rights on any African leader before they make accusations of human rights over Trump in Iraq right now, but also in Palestine. How credible are they in terms of Burkina Faso? Look, there is a lot of Fulani people, especially young people, who support Traore. I've been to that country 4 times. Yes, the war is happening in their territories because of Al-Qaeda and ISIS-based terrorism. And he is confronting that terrorism head on. So obviously there is what we call stray bullets in any war, sadly. So it is in their territory. So they are the ones who will be more displaced than any other ethnicity in Burkina Faso. That is targeting them is misinformation. It's targeted at a state that has instituted a revolution and that is fighting neoliberalism and neocolonialism, that has openly rejected France and is embracing alternatives as in China and Russia. And in terms of their national security, they have a right to choose their friends. It's self-determination, it's national and territorial integrity.
Now, accusations of ethnic cleansing are a serious matter. But how justified is it to make such claims based on mainly telephone interviews with a few hundred people? What do you make of that?
That also, those few hundred people are not in Burkina Faso mainly, in surrounding countries. One of those surrounding countries would be Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, even in 1987, with the assassination of Captain Thomas Sankara, were involved. It is said that it was pioneered from that country. Even Blaise Compaoré, who is the sole accused person in engineering the murder of Thomas Sankara, has ran to Ivory Coast. That's where he lives right now. There was an attempted coup last year, exactly on this month in April, engineered from Ivory Coast. And Captain Traore has often spoken against what that country is doing in Burkina Faso, housing dissidents. So interviewing 400 people, and based on that, as a human rights watch, we are accusing a president of another country of ethnic cleansing. I think that's a bit much. But then again, we know it is beyond the 400 people. It's beyond the ethnic cleansing of Fulani people. The issue of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the IS countries, is that they have openly declared that they have a right to choose their leaders. They have openly thrown away France, who never left. So those countries were never even decolonized because France never left. They continue to control the defense force, to control the economic resources. So for the first time, these three leaders have said it ends with us. They've thrown France out and they've nationalized their mineral resources, and we are seeing a lot of rapid economic transformation. So it is beyond the 400 people that they have interviewed. And I mean, who interviews 400 people and based on that has a declaration of ethnic cleansing? That's a serious crime.
Now, what economic gains has Ibrahim Traore achieved despite the spread of disinformation against him by the West and its fueled instability and terrorism in Burkina Faso?
I think let's start by saying this is a leader who has got at least 20, if not even 20, assassination attempts on his life right now. He is constantly battling the terrorist war. He is constantly battling Western misinformation, but this is what he has achieved. In the 3 years that he has been in power, he has grown the economy and from 18.8 billion to 22 billion. He has also reduced extreme poverty. He has nationalized gold mining and actually banned the export of raw gold so that he encourages that gold is melted internally. This is the outcry of most Africans in this continent, including my country, where we say, why are we an exporter of raw minerals and an importer of the finished product? So he has encouraged the melting of gold internally. He has increased agricultural production through equipment distribution. We have seen him distribute various types of equipment to agricultural farmers and to small scale and large scale. It's groundbreaking, which is why he is currently the most loved African president. We cannot argue against that. Traore is loved across African countries. Even the Fulani that he is accused of ethnic cleansing support him across West Africa. I mean, young people in northern Nigeria came out in numbers in support of Traore during when the youth came out in support of him when he was threatened to be attacked by ECOWAS at the time when he left ECOWAS.
All right, now, Burkinabe president, as you have talked about, says that human rights come from Africa, and he's referring to the Kurukan Fuga Charter, a 13th century constitution from the Mali Empire. Now, can you give us a broader context on this document and how important it was and is in Africa's history?
It's very important. It's a 13th century Mali. The Kurukan Fuga abolished slavery. It prohibited environmental degradation. It means your actions as a farmer or any human being could not lead to environmental degradation. So it was called social environment protection. He also established property rights, and it also promoted equality. That's 13th century. And I agree fully with President Traore, but I go beyond. That's 13th century in the era in which we are. This is CE or Common Era, or after Christ for those who are Christian. I go to an era called BCE, before the Common Era, before Christ for those who are Christian, what we call pre-colonial African history. African culture was based on Ubuntu, meaning I am because you are. All of them, which is why the way Africans built pre-colonial, we had an enclosed area. We called, in South African languages, Nguni languages, we call it Imbizo, or the Sotho languages, Lekgotla. It's got different words in Swahili throughout this continent, which was an enclosed area where if there were problems, the whole nation was called there, and the king or queen, whoever was at the helm, would address them, and they would deliberate. Sometimes this would go on for 20 days, 30 days, deliberate on a particular issue until the leaders and the people met each other and they could find each other. So for me, Africa has always operated on democracy that was popular based, not democracy that was top down. Secondly, I've just written a book looking at pre-colonial African gender system, or the gender construct. We ran in Africa the most equitable gender construct. We didn't name it, but we ensured that there is a constant balancing between male and female in terms of power. And even the checks and balances on the king or queen on the helm. That's why sometimes when the colonizers came here, they laughed at us that we are so splintered and we are so many. Because one of the check and balances in Africa was that if the king or the queen rose to be such a dictator that you didn't like them, all you did was to elect a leader amongst yourselves and trek off and start a new community. So I fully agree with him. The West cannot lecture us on human rights. They found us here being an equitable society, and they told us that the man is the head of the house. They told us that the woman is the originator of sin. So for me, I fully embrace what he is saying. We cannot be lectured on human rights. We were the most equitable society pre-colonially. And we are struggling now in a process called decolonization to go back to those principles by which we lived, which were made to live, because the West imposed its own culture when they came to colonize Africa.
Now, talking about the Western lecture, what do you think gives the West the rights to even lecture developing countries on human rights, given its own record with harsh suppression of protests and selective media bans, or with its bloody invasion in Iraq and Libya? The list goes on. What do you think gives them the right to lecture others about this?
You know, sometimes when you don't expect something, you don't even know how to respond to it. You just laugh because you don't know what to do. I mean, the West is currently funding the proxy war in Ukraine, which they are calling the invasion of Russia. We call it the war between Russia and Ukraine because the proxy war, Ukraine is fighting a proxy war on behalf of the West. America has invaded Iran without a UN backing, telling us they are weapons of mass destruction, which were never found. George Bush was never taken to any court of law. Now they're invading Iraq. They killed a sitting leader of a country. They killed him, duly elected by his people. And that's not seen as a violation of human rights. Palestine is shrinking. I mean, the violation against human rights in Palestine is just unthinkable. You can write volume 1 to volume 100 of the various types of human rights violations. Has the human rights watchdog ever come out in condemnation of this? I think for me, the West truly has had it nice for a long time, until the Soviet Union came along and started contesting their reign and hold of the world. When the Soviet Union fell, I think they celebrated and thought, oh, we are now entering a unipolar world where we as the West will dictate and we shall have no opposer. And then China came along and Russia came along, thanks to President Putin, strengthened Russia, took Russia, you know, from where it had fallen after the fall of communism and put it on the map where Russia is today. So now they see, and African countries are also like the Sahel countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, are coming up to say no to neoliberalism. So now the West is pulling its hair. Now they are saying, okay, we are being contested again. What can we do? They are clutching straws. They are accusing that leader of this and that leader of that. I mean, they are accusing us of taking land away from white South Africans. Can I tell you, white South Africans still own at least over 87%, if not around 87% of the land in South Africa. There has not been land distribution here of any meaningful latitude, but we are being accused and we are being threatened by Trump. So for me, this is how I summarize this. According to the West is right and the West is might. And if you stand against our foreign policy of the West is might and the West is right, we shall use our military, we shall invade you. If we cannot invade you directly like they are doing with Russia, we shall find a willing country around you and establish a proxy war. I mean, why do they have foreign military bases all over Africa and everywhere in the world? To do what? The West is such a militarized foreign economy system that anything that stands in the way of that becomes an enemy. So these accusations are just to downplay the advances that the IS countries have made. I mean, they are the first defense pact in Africa since colonization, where 3 African countries come together and they say an attack on these countries, an attack on us. And they are militarizing their defense forces, which is good because that's the only language the West understands. I'm sure Russia knows that very well. So for me, this is just eating sour grapes. They don't know what else to accuse President Traore of. They can't say the people are suffering because the people are behind him. I think before we finish this, I must just share this before I forget it. I've been to Ouagadougou 4 times. There is a system that civilians have instituted in Burkina Faso, where they sleep in the street at night. They make a cordon of at least a kilometer, sleeping in the street, guarding Captain Traore. Not that he's not guarded by the military. Those civilians, no one organizes them, no one asks them, they organize themselves. They say before you get to the military, you shall have gotten through to us. Some of those people work. They pull 2-hour shifts, they sleep there, they wake up from their 2-hour shift and go to work. I mean, how much love is that? So the West knows that they cannot do anything internally in Burkina Faso to make the people hate Ibrahim Traore. So they can use their watchdogs or so-called watchdogs, which they fund for destruction really and not for goodness in the world, like the human rights watchdog, to accuse him, because then they can, because if they do that, then people can say, oh, but he's not such a good leader, he's violating human rights.
Okay. It's so interesting speaking with you, Khanyisile Litchfield Tshabalala, member of the South African National Assembly. Thank you so
Sorry, I didn't know I was muted there. I said that was a great analysis. I loved every single word. I had to play the whole thing. I was trying to cut it, but there was no point. It was a great one. So, my sister, what would you like to add to that before we can add our own 2 cents to that?
What I would like to add there is that while we as Africans are fighting a war of decolonization, an anti-neoliberal, neo-colonial war, the West is fighting a war of colonial capitalism and of the so-called neoliberalism. They have so much money out of Africa, from slavery to classical colonialism. When I use the term classical colonialism, I mean from the West, the colonial governor, they are flag hanging. From classical colonialism, and then when they left, starting natural and economic slavery or colonialism. They've made so much is built at the back of the African men and women. It is built at the back of our minerals, at the back of our soil. So much that it is not easy for them to let go. They don't want to leave. And I think they are being threatened by countries like the countries. They're being threatened countries like that. And they don't know what to do. So they clutch straws, as I said. They defame the leader hen so that the world can turn against that leader. And primarily, though, so that the people of that country can turn against. Propaganda is aimed first at the people, then at the external. Thank you, Oladele.
Nduku, do you want to add your analysis to that, Nduku?
So,
And then I'll add mine, and then we can go into the other topic.
yes. Apparently the sound is unclear, Mama Kanyi, when you're speaking, Khanyisile, when you're speaking. So, yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about that. Can you all hear me, both of you? Can you hear me? Mama Khanyisile and Oladele, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Sis, you can hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we're good.
So yes, like Mama Khanyisile said in the video, and like our brother Traore responded in one of the interviews with this Mzungu who was asking him about the same thing, and that Mzungu should consider himself fortunate to have sat at a table next to him. They laughed. That's the first response. You have to laugh. You have to laugh. And in fact, I suggest moving forward, Africans, laugh your hyena laugh, a nice big fat hyena laugh when asked that question. Laugh so hard your head goes all the way back, and then clap your hands and then look at them and then laugh again. That's how we should respond. Because how dare you think that this is the time where you even have, there's no moral ground. You're sinking. This is like, what's it called? The sand where you stand on and it sinks. Quicksand. You're on quicksand. You're bombing children indiscriminately. Hold on, let me be specific. The United States of America. Because the Human Rights Watch, apparently, the only time it has criticized the United States is during the George Floyd protests. The only time. And even then it said structural, what did it call it? Structural human rights crisis, right? That's how it called it. But guess what? Never ever, in all the times that it has criticized the West, has it ever had punitive measures on them. But with Africa and others, sanctions, threatening of taking away aid, like there's always something. There's a punitive action taken by Human Rights Watch when they accuse our nations, right? With Gaddafi, he's killed, he's invaded, he's killed and taken out, right? But with the United States, the only time is during George Floyd. But what do we, as African people who know our history, what do we know about the United States and their relationship with us? They have done medical testing on our people. Horrible, horrible, horrible crimes against humanity. They have put drugs and weapons in our neighborhoods and created a crime-infested situation where our people are killing each other and have no value for human life anymore because of the influence of that virus that comes from white Western people. And I will call it white. Yes. You will not tell us for years that you are white and superior and then come out and tell us we can't say that on YouTube or wherever. You are white. And it is white people who, through our history, have done this harm to us. That is the evidence throughout history. And so when you're lynching Black people in the United States, when you're destroying Black cities, when Black people decide to separate themselves from you and build after enslavement and build for themselves and they have thriving cities and you ban them, you drown them. When you're killing Black people on the streets and sticking dogs on them during the civil rights era, right? When you're shooting Malcolm, when you're shooting Dr. King, when you're shooting Medgar, when you're killing all those people who are fighting, when you're imprisoning the Black Power, members of the Black Power movement, right? Black Panther. Please remind me the name, please. Please.
Fred Hampton.
No, the movement.
The
Black Panther Party. The Black Panther. When you're arresting and imprisoning their members just because they're fighting for their, yes, just because they're fighting for their rights. When you're underfunding Black communities, Black students. I'm in the field, I'm getting in the field of education, and we are encountering teenagers who cannot read or write, teenagers, Black boys, because they have been criminalized. And because of that criminalizing of them, they are not given the resources, they're not allowed the time in school and given the attention and the nurturing by their teachers. When you're doing all that, who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? Right? When you're running COINTELPRO, a program run by your FBI, and we will name them, by J. Edgar Hoover. spying, sending messages, disrupting, corrupting, and who on earth are you? And that's the only response we should have. We laugh and then we ask, who are you to ask me about my human rights violations? What are you doing in my nation? What are your military bases doing in my nation? And so, to me, I'm not entertaining these questions anymore. And in fact, the Human Rights Watch means nothing to me. It is not an accredited, right? These are the terms that they use. Organization. To me, I'm an Ubuntu. The UN, I do not recognize it as an organization that represents me as I'm an Ubuntu. And we should all come together and say that. We do not recognize these organizations as organizations that represent us. We have our own. We have a Mbongi. And in this Mbongi of the United African Nations and ethnic groups, we have agreed that the United States has committed the worst crime against one Ubuntu, whether the Jews like it or not, because I know that's the thing with Israel, right? The fact that Black people wanted that to be the worst crime is going to make the crime against them, the Holocaust. I'm echoing. You're muted, Oladile.
Carry on talking, sis. Carry on talking.
Yeah. So we need, and I said this last week, right? We have to start putting together our own laws. We cannot be governed by the laws of the oppressor. Like, that is just simple math. It's simple logic, my people. It is simple logic. Continue to frustrate me until we get, like, how are we, the oppressed, governed by the oppressor's laws, and we are out here calling each other, oh, did you see he was arrested? He had it coming. This is what we are saying. Oh, he did not follow the law. My people who look like me telling me, Nduku, you have to follow the law. Which law? The oppressor's law? The oppressor's law that says I cannot grow my own seed. I cannot preserve my own indigenous seed. I cannot share it with my people. The oppressor's law that allows Bill Gates to go everywhere. By the way, the Bill Gates Foundation is one of the funders. Yeah, let me do that. Let me do our people justice and let them know who all the funders are of this so-called Human Rights Watch, right? It's not a Human Rights Watch. It's a Human Rights Watch. No, it's a human watch to make sure it is monitoring what people are doing and how they can run that to make sure that the people who make money are still making money and it does not disrupt that making of the money. That's what this is. It's an organization that is there to serve the powerful, not us, not the human rights. It is there to serve the rights of George Soros, as Mama Khanyisile mentioned, of Bill Gates. And by the way, if you think these private entities are separate from the United States government, think again. They are the people of the United States, right?
Yep.
According to Citizens United, which is a case that was carried out in the United States Supreme Court, where they decided apparently corporations are people. And so they are the people of the United States, these corporations. And therefore, as the people of the United States, they are the United States government, because that's who that government represents. So,
okay.
Let me stop right there. Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to add my 2 cents to that. And this is what and basically based on Mama Khanishile's thoughts and Unduku's thoughts. I've been watching this all through the week. And what gets me is we Africans who, what we do, they put this propaganda out there and we run with it. We become the gatekeepers of the European narrative. They're saying something that's not right about fellow countrymen. Instead of us to basically rebuttal it, call it out, then we put the headlines out to make it sound like it's facts. And this is basically why this misinformation gets through. Because we Africans see a Muzungu headline and we run with it like it's true. So it's about time we Africans, when we see this narrative, we need to call it out. Because I was telling Nduku earlier before we came on, there was basically a big platform on Instagram spouting the same headlines. So I had to call it out before they took it down. And this is one of the biggest problems for Africans. When Muzungu say something, I think it's about time we realize that we can never trust the Muzungu, the white people, for anything. This has not gone through to our heads at all. When they say it, we think it's gospel. But all they've done, and historically, if you follow, they've always lied to push a narrative, to push a propaganda, to make us look silly and stupid. So why in 2026 will we see a headline that knocks down our own and believe it, knowing what they stand for, and now knowing that they lack morals and ethical standing on nothing? Very immoral people. And that's my take on this. So we Africans need to start deciphering the truth from the lies. And the key point here, the key point I'm making here, in 2026, when you see a Muzungu knock down your own people, get back at them. Don't let it sit. Don't let it fester, because it's a lie. If we see lies within ourselves, we can call each other out within ourselves, not in their faces. We can do it privately. And that's my thoughts on that. Let's go on to the topic today. The topic is about what's going on in Iran at the moment. So we had to bring that in so we can tie it in. And in terms of what's going on with the Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, you can see what's happening with Iran. The same thing can happen to any African country if you do not do what they tell you to do. Iran is fighting for its survival at the moment. They're fighting for their survival at the moment. And this has been going for the last 40 years, where Israel and US is trying to take a 3,000 year or 5,000 year civilization out. Imagine it, a 5,000 year civilization older than Israel, older than America. They're trying to take him out. As they're doing this is the same thing they're doing to these three countries that we're talking about. And this could be any other African countries on our continent. So as Africans, where do we stand? How do we defend ourselves? Mama K, your thoughts? I just put the topic up.
I think for me, it's just unbelievable that in 2026, we are witnessing an invasion of a country by two other countries and the systematic elimination of its leadership, starting with the president. It's unbelievable that the whole world is watching, but what is unbelievable about this, because the DRC is going on, I mean, the richest country in Africa, choosing minerals for the West, while Congolese are refugees. They are refugees in South Africa, helping us park in malls, my sister Ndugu. When I go to a mall, it's a Congolese that calls my car and tell me, oh, you're correctly parked now. They come from a country with the richest minerals in Africa. It does not translate to their plate, but those minerals are being stockpiled somewhere in the West or used by that Western power or that Western power. So what is unbelievable about us seeing what's unfolding in Iraq? I mean, we have Sudan still not resolved. We have the conflict in Ethiopia still not resolved. We have Palestine that's shrinking, as I said it before. People, please go and look. It's actually unbelievable how Zionists can just come into a Palestinian neighborhood and say, by a decree passed this morning, these are now our houses, you must pack and go. Imagine that happening to you in your locality, for all those Christians out there who are supporting Israel and telling us they have a right to defend themselves. That's like saying the Afrikaners in South Africa had a right to defend themselves. Or the colonialists in Kenya, the British, the Mau Mau was wrong. The British had a right to defend themselves. So I think for me, we are shocked when we see it play out with Iraq, my brother Oladele, but this has been long time coming. This is the strategy the West uses. I mean, they attacked us even from slavery to classical colonialism, now to neocolonialism. It is the guns that win the war in the end, which for me, it breaks my heart to realize the state of defense forces in Africa. I say this in every platform. What Iran is doing to fight back, we can't even survive 2 days doing that as a continent, not as a country in Africa. Because we are the only people who have been told, don't invest in the defense force, look after your public services. So we didn't invest in our defense forces. A lot of them are in the 19th century, a trickle in the 20th century. And we are told Algeria, Egypt, and South Africa are in the 21st century, but having been in defense, I can tell you myself, I mean, honestly, I don't know in which 21st century we are, but be that as it may, when we are compared to the West becomes the best because we are being compared to African countries. Now, we are told, don't invest in defense, invest in public services. But they already know how they are going to make sure, my sister Nduke and my brother Oladele, even in those public services, we shall not invest because look at the state in which the public service in Africa is. Because we don't own our mineral resources, we're importers of the raw material and exporters of a finished product. What then happens is that the loans we take, the handouts they give us, they always come with conditions that in the end make us not to be able to even invest in those public services. I'm looking for a large scale in those public services. So we don't have defense forces that are functional, but we also don't have public services that are functional. So, I mean, honestly, how can a country like Vietnam be doing better? And I'm not saying like Vietnam to undermine them. I'm saying that because they fought a bitter war. They had to rebuild themselves from after a bitter war with a giant called America. But how can they be doing better than us in terms of their public service and in terms of their defense force? Because they got it right. They know that we can have the best public service in the world. If we cannot defend it from Trump and his mad Israel, or from Israel and his mad American minions, because truly it's Israel that runs America. We say this wrong. We say America and Israel, they are back. It's Israel and the American minions. Israel runs America. In fact, I hope every American hears this. So Vietnam has come to know for us to protect ourselves from people like Israel and the American minions, we have to make sure our defense force can buffer back like the Iranian one is doing. So I think that would be my initial thoughts, my brother Oladele.
Yeah, and lessons can be drawn from what Iran's doing, guys, because I look at them. They've, like my sister said, they've had history. They could foresee or know what's going to prepare themselves for this for a long time. And the sad thing about this is African countries, knowing our history and what we've been through colonization, through the we're basically, we're not prepared for nothing. So we continue to remain an extractive hub for these hegemonic powers to develop their ammunition that they are using against us. And we're not thinking as a collective continent, how do we build? And this is basically where, when we're talking about Ubuntu, when we're talking about Pan-Africanism, this is basically why we need a Pan-African collective bloc as Africans. And this is where Ibrahim Traore, Chiani, and Goita, those three presidents, are pulling together. Like Mackenzie said in the interview, they're building a bloc. This is, to me, this is a blueprint for a new African setup that's going to give us that military might that will bring us together. But you can see other African countries, because they are still gatekeepers and mission managers for the hegemonic powers, they don't want to be part of that because they're scared that they're going to be picked apart. Like what's going into Iran, that scares them. But if you have a military bloc of, at least if you have a solidarity bloc of 10 countries working together, can you imagine what that means and what the statement of intent means? And this is where Africa is lacking. This is basically where we need to build, because when you look at what Iran's doing, look at who Iran is holding its own. It's holding its own. It's basically strategically, it's defeated Israel and US together, defeated them strategically. So Africans, what are we doing? Unduku.
I just shared a video by Professor Jang of Columbia University. It's a great analysis on the war, the unprovoked war that the United States and Israel are carrying against Iran. Iran has been preparing for 25 years. They have been quietly preparing and studying the United States, studying their weaknesses, right? Studying their strengths. And he predicts, and his predictions have come to fruition. And he also admits that even if they don't, if it goes the other way, we'll all be gone and dead from nuclear weaponry, that we won't have to worry about it, right? So, he also admits that even if we're here, he can also come back and say, okay, my prediction was wrong. Where did I go wrong? So he bases his analysis on facts and studying political behavior throughout years and comes to an informed conclusion, right? Not just guesswork. And I agree with his analysis on the video that I shared. And he says, if the United, and I see posts, people posting, or the United States military is on the ground in Iran, and I'm like, I guess we're going for that analysis, because he gives two options. The United States would stick with the air attack and survive destruction, but still have a big loss, but survive destruction, right? Still be able to keep save face. But if it goes on ground, Iran is ready, and Iran will destroy the United States and its economy and its reputation. So, and it shouldn't be strange that Black people are siding with Iran in this moment. And siding with Iran does not mean that you stand by Arab invasion and colonization of our people. We don't get that. But sometimes you have to befriend the enemy of your enemy to destroy that enemy, the one that is immediately affecting you. When that enemy is destroyed, then you can get back on the drawing table and deal with this enemy and figure out, okay, are you going to acknowledge that you've done harm to my people, and how do we move forward? I've said for so many years that African nations need to have partnerships with Iran. We need to. They have the technology to build their own weaponry. Right there, right then. America's technology to build weaponry is very costly. Professor Zhang talks about this. Very costly, so they cannot replicate quickly. Iran, it's cheap, it's right there, it's multiple locations of manufacturing, so they can regenerate what they need quickly, right? We need to start moving that way. I am sick and tired of Africans talking about spirituality, and I'm an African spiritual claiming and person. But to hell with your spirituality. It is just as bad as Catholicism and all the other religions. If you're going to sit there on your behind and talk about we're going to do a spiritual war, no. We must do both. The spiritual and the physical war. We are being attacked. Physical weaponry. We must prepare by physical weaponry. The Kenya Land and Freedom Army, otherwise known as the Mau Mau, they were faced by the Brits. It actually reminds me, when Dr. Zhang was talking, I was remembering the Mau Mau, because they were attacked by air attack. Like they were being bombed and stuff, but they still won. If you look at that war, the Kenya Land and Freedom Army won the war because the Brits had to stop the war and find a peaceful negotiation because they couldn't manage to continue. And this was done by people who had no experience as far as building weaponry. They just had a will and they had skills. And they would invade military bases and steal weapon parts and everything and put together. They had their own army bases where they were building their own military. That was a requirement by Dedan Kimathi. If you want to read the book, and I'll remember the book as we continue to talk. There's letters from them where he instructs them that every unit has to have a manufacturing, you have to be making your own weaponry. And if you weren't, you were penalized. Every unit had to have a health unit where you were taking care of the injured. So it frustrates me when Africans talk about, oh, but the United States is so mighty and powerful. How can we fight them? How did Vietnam fight them? How did Vietnam fight them? Yeah, the Haitian Revolution. Thank you. That's Noire reminding me about the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution with very minimal weaponry, but tactics and strategy and the will to survive and protect what's theirs. I am tired of following you Africans as sheep. I'm tired. I'm tired of being a black sheep with my sister and my brother and other few people, while you white sheep are throwing us over the cliff. Yeah. I'm tired. So we need to get with Iran. We need to get with Russia. I am being specific. I'm not worried about these, what do we call them? Respectability politics, right? Respectability politics. Or the Western man
it's interest politics now, so
right?
It's not respect.
The Western man has said we can't say this online, so we wouldn't say this online. Seriously. What did Russia do to the black people? Tell me now what Russia has done to African nations today. They have mercenaries. I know that, and we're going to deal with them with that. But when you look at the West, who tells you don't side with Russia? Don't side with China. Don't side with Iran. The West and these three entities, who has done more harm to African people? Just last week, we were at the UN declaring that this harm by the West is the worst crime against humanity, the enslavement of our people. So why do you, who've been enslaved, the descendants of enslaved people, why do you listen to your enslavers and about not befriending these people and having strategic partners? People who have the capability and the technology to build weaponry. People who have the technology for intelligence gathering. So I think I've said enough on that. I stand with Iran for that reason, not because I am okay with, I'm closing my eyes on the colonization that the Arabs and the Persians carried out against our people, because in East Africa, it's the Persians, it's the Oman Empire that enslaves our people there. I haven't forgotten that. But in this moment, they have technology that we could use. They have strategies that we could learn from, and I'm standing with them. And yes, you can be in Kenya and criticize Kenya. You can be in a nation and criticize your nation if your nation is not doing good by you. And guess what? The United States is a stolen nation. It is a colonial nation. It belongs to the indigenous people. It does not belong to the current government that governs it. So you can come at me with all this, what are you doing in the United States? Or leave if you... No, I'm not.
Don't worry about that, sis. Let people talk.
Indigenous people's lands.
Yeah,
and until the indigenous people come together and tell me, get out, no.
I love that, because it's not theirs. It's stolen. My sister, I'm okay. Okay, in terms of African countries, obviously you've talked about what the South Trade are doing. How do we move from here for Africans as a collective? Because that's basically one of the biggest challenges that being a Pan-African. Because I'm going to put this, and then you can answer me. This is my observation. Until African has Pan-African leaders, we're not going to move anywhere. I think that's the crux of the problem with Africa at the moment. We haven't got Pan-African leaders. Apart from those three that we mentioned, the other 52 or 51 are basically mission managers, gatekeepers for the Muzungu. So basically, it doesn't matter. People talk about Kagame. Kagame is one of them. He's basically one of the worst ones. And because I've had a few comments, and that's what I'm talking about it now. Kagame is one of the biggest mission managers for the Muzungu. Look at the people he's dealing with: Tony Blair, King Charles, Bill Clinton. These are the people that he's friends with. Show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are. So, guys, there is no African leader at the moment that is Pan-African apart from these three. So, my sister, in terms of not having Pan-African leaders, where do we go from here? Because for me, that's the biggest problem. Because the rest of the continent are not thinking about the three are doing, and that's a problem.
You know, Oladele, you are asking a very depressing question, because the answer to that leads us in the end to blame ourselves as Africans, because there is no single Afrocentric. I've actually even moved beyond Pan-Africanism. Please remind me to talk about this if I don't talk about it in this segment of answering you. There is not a single Afrocentric leader who was killed without the assistance of another African. There's no white man who's come to shoot a sitting president. You know, Iraq is different. And for me, that on its own tells a story. Why couldn't they find an Iraqi inside to assassinate the leader? They had to do it through a missile. In Africa, they don't need to go to that length. They will always find... Nduku, please look for, while I talk, for what Khalid Mohammed described Africans like Jesse Jackson or Kagame. You know, sissified, pussified, whitewashed. Just find that quotation. They will always find that type of African who is more West than the West, who is willing to kill another African, not because that African is not doing well. I mean, Blaise Compaoré killed Sankara, not because Sankara was not delivering in Burkina Faso in terms of the revolution. He was actually spot on. But Blaise Compaoré killed him because France told him that when this guy is dead, you will be the president. And it's exactly what happened. And what did Blaise Compaoré do in his presidency? Nothing but excuse my language, Oladele, he was just so deep in the ass of France, he couldn't smell the feces around him. That's what Blaise Compaoré did. That's what summarizes his reign after killing a patriot and a revolutionary. Now, you can say the same thing about Mobutu Sese Seko, with Patrice Lumumba. You can say the same thing about the death of the Dan Kimati and the West allowing Jomo Kenyatta to emerge, a ruthless tribalist who has done nothing in Kenya but stratify tribalism in that country. So for me, you are asking a question that is sad because it's a question that talks about who we have become as Africans. Khalid Mohammed sometimes would say we've become dust. We have become so devalued that we ourselves look at ourselves as devalued. So it's easy to buy an African to kill another African. In South Africa, there was so much unison in opposition, black parties included. Zuma must fall, Zuma must fall. Zuma fell. A nationalist fell. And what did we get? A ruthless capitalist who's auctioning our public services left, right, and center. Now everybody is saying, including ANC members themselves who are bold, oh, this is the worst president we've had. But we knew that before. We knew that when he was indicted in the Marikana thing. I mean, not that the court of law agreed, but I mean, we know phone calls were exchanged and somehow he was involved. We knew that before, that we are replacing what we have with what we do not have. In Zulu, they say, ulahlekelwa ukhona ngokungekho. So we do that all the time with our leaders. So it's actually hard. That's why I cannot appreciate Burkinabe, Nigeri people, and the Malians even more for protecting and ring-fencing the leaders that they have. So you asked what should happen in Africa. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to start ring-fencing the leaders that matter. And two, we need to call out, as my sister Ndugu was saying, the leaders that don't matter. Cyril does not matter to me, honestly, and he's never mattered. But I even go beyond me. I say Mandela himself did not matter, by the way, and I'm glad I am on this podcast as Khanyisile and not as a member of parliament or representing Umkhonto weSizwe. Mandela himself didn't matter because the constitution was commissioned under him, and this constitution was passed when Thabo Mbeki was there in 96. Oh, I think Mandela was still there from 94. But I mean, then Thabo Mbeki became president, and this constitution, he embraced it. So this constitution that says, listen to this, whenever we shout about land appropriation in South Africa, this is it, my sister Ndugu, because I know you will shoot off the roof. We are only talking about the land that was taken from 1913 onwards. Land appropriation at gunpoint in South Africa started in 1652. We are saying all the land that was lost between 1652 and 1913 does not matter. That's the Constitution of South Africa that Thabo Mbeki embraced, that Mandela embraced, that constitution that when Zuma tried to question, he was taken out in a brutal way. And we are the only party right now that actually says this constitution must die. All other parties are happy with it, black parties included. So for me, I'm just like, when you ask me that question, Oladele, it's a difficult question because it's not that we don't have leaders. We have them. But they look at the mess that is called African politics. And they look at how we are the first people, you've said it yourself, that side with Western propaganda, that are willing to be paid for the death of those leaders. They look at this, a lot of them, and they decide, I rather just be an author, a critic, I rather just be a political analyst. And even then they limit what they can say. It's not because we don't have leaders, we don't have patriots, we have them. But we, the people, are not willing to stand behind them and to protect them. I mean, look at Burkinabe people forming a cordon between where Captain Traore stays and the defense force, where the cordon of the defense force starts in his protection. They have formed their own, at least 8 kilometers, pulling to our shifts, organizing themselves. Nobody's organizing them. The military is not involved, saying, not under our watch, you will pass through us. What happened to Sankara shall not happen to Traore. We need to start saying things like that, and we need to stop going with the flow of the West. I mean, I started saying I don't like Mandela. I mean, like right from the early 90s. That's what made me not to join the ANC as a political party. And people wanted to stone me. Now people are turning around and they're saying, we think Mandela sold us. Yeah, which is another thing we need to start doing, Africans. Can we use our brains? Also, can we stand for the truth? Even if 100 people, 99 people in that room disagree with you, and you are the only one who says it, if you know it is the truth, stand with it. Why do we want to be populists? I'm not in this world to be loved, I've always said. I'm not here to be popular. I'm not here to be rich either, by the way. I'm not a very rich woman. For all the things that I've accomplished, I am not a very rich woman. But that's fine. That's not the legacy I want to leave behind, which is another thing Africans need to start thinking of. What are we going to say about you? You came, you became a member of parliament, you drove the latest Italian or German car, you ate, and you died. No, I'm sorry, that's not me. Those are not the people, the things that are going to be said about me when I die. That's not my legacy. She came, she rose to power, she ate, she drank expensive, and then she died. Sorry, not me. Back to you, my brother Oladele.
I like
No.
that. I like that. Yeah. Oniko, do you want to go?
Yes.
Yes, let's
So,
hear you.
as always, since we have a tool that we can use, and because it is being used, right? I could sit here and say I'm not going to use ChatGPT. It does so much harm to the environment and all that. Yes, I could do that, but ChatGPT is allowing us to get information that we need to do to stop it eventually, right, and correct the environment. So while it is being used, we're going to use it for our benefit strategy.
Yes.
And it says as one of, first of all, let me just start by the human part, the part that is, I'm not going to read directly because I have to go up. The first question I asked it was, what can Africa learn? And my ChatGPT now knows that it has to answer everything from an African perspective. That's how I have conditioned. Because that's what AI is, right? That's another thing. And I put out on Kumukeni, if you all go in the posts section, I've been putting out videos there. There's a video there that I shared about AI and what it's doing. AI is not intelligent at all. The only thing that's intelligent about AI, like I've said before, it's a database. And this was confirmed in this film by these experts who actually build AI and who know much more about it than I do. They call it a database. But what AI does, what is intelligent about AI is that it can copy.
It gets all the information from everywhere.
It can copy information into that database. It can copy information into that database. But AI is so stupid, not so much stupid, but racist and racistically conditioned that it won't know my face from a Khanyisile's face or another person's face. If that person had murdered someone and it sees mine, apparently I will end up in court. And these people are using these systems to make judgment. No longer a human judge, but AI systems, algorithms, to come up with judgment. So no matter what the judge says or the lawyer, the system has determined that you are going to jail. This is what's happening. So going back to ChatGPT, right? That was just a side note to help you all understand AI. Intelligence and awareness apparently is one of the things that we need to look at. But before, when I asked it, what can Africa learn from Iran? It said to me, it is not good for Africa to copy war tactics. I said, who the hell are you, ChatGPT, you and your Mzungu way of thinking, right? As if this is not what Western culture is all about, war. And so I went back to it and said, ChatGPT, stop playing games with me. We're talking about a people who have monetized war, are people who will start wars just to make money. So could you please give me the answers I seek? And so it came back. It said intelligence and awareness. One of the biggest lessons from and so I mentioned this and we discussed, right? One of the biggest lessons from long-term strategic states is they study power deeply. African defense must include understanding foreign influence operations, monitoring resource contracts and external actors, and I'm glad that is being said because we're going to talk about the Ghanaian President Mahama signing that contract, monitoring resource contracts and external actors, anticipating destabilization tactics. You can't defend against what you don't understand. Let's have a conversation on that. Let's have a conversation.
Okay, you want to go? And then I've got quite a few questions there actually, so yeah, we can start great because the questions go straight into what we're talking about as well.
Yes, I agree. You can't defend what you do not know. I don't remember. Ndugu, please don't forget to find that quotation by Khalid
Oh,
Mohammed
I
for
put
me.
it already. I put it up. He called
She's
them
already put it
spineless.
up.
I'm using my phone, because my laptop, you were saying
Let me
there's
read it to
issues
you.
with the sound.
He
Yeah.
called them.
In fact, before you read, let's say this is Khalid Mohammed, bless him, describing the bulk of African leaders that we have, if not the overwhelming majority of African leaders we have. Please read it.
Brainwashed and spineless African leaders.
Thank you. Now, I also want you to check who was the American president. You'll tell us when your next segment of speaking comes. Who was the American president on the eve of the war in Vietnam? Because this is what he said. He said, it's little yellow men with squinted eyes, wearing straw hats or running around in straw hats. We shall be there for 2 weeks. They were there for 19 years and they lost the war, by the way, because the intention of America was to divide Vietnam like they've done with Korea. Sorry, was to make sure, yes, it was to divide Vietnam like they've done with Korea. If they don't win the war, at least they will leave it divided, so that there's communist Vietnam, which was the North, and the South, which was collaborating with them. They failed. Vietnam remained a unitary state under Ho Chi Minh, and it was a communist state, the South included. So they lost that war. Why am I telling our listeners this? Because my sister Ndugu just said it. If we don't know who the enemy is, if we have not defined the enemy, we don't even know what we are fighting. We are like blind people being given weapons and told to go to war, which is why we shall be embracing things that come from BBC. I mean, guys, BBC, CNN, Sky News,
Poison.
which one?
I said
France,
the poison. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
France. I mean, I would not feed those channels to a rat dying from rat eggs being poisoned. I will not make that rat.
I don't watch him, sis. I don't.
Yes, I will not make that rat listen to those channels. That rat deserves to buy in peace without being injected by misinformation and disinformation. Which African comes up and tells me it was on BBC? I feel like smacking you across the face. What is
Sis,
BBC?
sorry,
It's
sis. The thing
British
is, like you said that
propaganda.
most Africans watch those channels like they're watching
know.
the Bible. It's so sad.
And then they fight us when we have alternative knowledge, which does not come from those Western channels. Can I just tell them right here and now, those channels are propagating Western foreign policies. Those channels
Absolutely.
are propagating white is right and right is might, and that might is white, however they say it. But at the end of the day, those channels are there to make sure that you as Africans continue to have low self-esteem and no faith in yourself, and that we are always looking to the West as a savior. So if you listen to them, and I do sometimes, it's just for me to understand how the enemy is thinking and what the enemy is saying. That's how I approach those channels, not as a source of knowledge or news or information. I listen to them to study the mind of the enemy that I'm dealing with, which currently is the West. Why am I saying the West is our enemy? Because the West has never left. As I said it even on RT about France and the IS countries, the Alliance of the Sahel States. The West has never left. We continue being extractionist economies, meaning what? Meaning we are extracting and feeding the West. Let's play this as an example. South African gold. They always show it on our news. Our main news bulletin is at 19 hours. My brother Oladel and my sister Ndugu. And then they show, whenever they talk about the value of gold and how much it is, they'll show this gold stacked in blocks. And I always say to people, why it's stacked in those blocks? It's ready to be shipped to the UK, which has stockpiled that gold. Even if we stop supplying the UK now, I'm told they have gold for the next 2 generations, if not 3. Maybe they're even underestimating, because they've been stockpiling from when we were a colony, in 17 something. Now, that gold is going there. Listen to this. What job did it create in South Africa? I call it, no disrespect meant, I call it monkey see, monkey do. You don't need to go to university to be a miner. You must just be brave, You shouldn't be claustrophobic so that you can survive underground. And then you just need to look what is done and you do. That's the job it creates. Let's talk what Ndugu was talking about. AI, scientific, technical. Where does South African gold create those jobs? In the UK, because that's where it gets melted, it gets shaped, it gets polished, it gets melted, it gets polished, it gets shaped into the products, and then it gets polished, and then it's shipped back to Africa. So when I buy, that's why I am married for so many years, over 20 years, I don't have a ring because it's symbolized by gold. And I'm just like, until you pay our miners the fair value of what they are mining, I'm not buying that gold. Also, until we melt it here and it creates scientific AI and technical jobs in South Africa, I am not wearing it. I'm not ashamed of wearing cheap gold. I always clean it with my sanitizer because it hurts my ears, but I rather go through that. I will not buy 9 carat, 18 carat, whatever gold that Africans put on their rings when they marry, wearing the tears of miners who've died, they're underpaid, wearing our poverty of gold that is ours, but is not translating to the food on the table. So I think for me, what my sister Ndugu has said is a mouthful. We need to start as Africans to articulate what we call beyond neoliberalism. We have now said neoliberalism is wrong, and we all know it's demonic. Actually, wrong is an understatement. It's demonic. It is what has kept us where we are, poverty-stricken continent. But what do we want beyond neoliberalism? And I think my sister Ndugu was pointing us in that direction. Are we thinking seriously about AI to use it for ourselves? We know it's wrong, and we know all the things it wasn't founded for us. Africa was not founded for whites, but they found a way to make Africa work for them. So we can find ways around to make AI work for us. Are we even thinking that way? Instead, AI is using us. We are not using AI. Secondly, we need to start thinking, what are the things economically that will liberate this continent? And for me, what we say in Umkhonto weSizwe actually, saying nationalization of our mineral resources is one of them. Because if you are endowed with so many mineral resources, why are you poor? It's supposed to be creating so many jobs in terms of processing those minerals in the continent, which means you need to start investing in large-scale industry. But we don't think that way. You know, we are actually happy to be wearing, in South Africa, they call them imports. I don't know in Kenya and Nigeria. In South Africa, we are happy to wear imports, things that are not made in South Africa, that are manufactured from somewhere, Louis Vuittons and all the rubbish
we are basically all the same, sis. Same mindset.
Oh, my brother, you know, in Afrikaans, they have a saying, I'll translate it. They say, I'll draw up a ring, bladed no even if you can put a golden ring on a monkey or a baboon, it still stays an ugly animal. So for me, after they have draped themselves with all these imported things that are expensive, at one value they are worth 10,000, the cap is 2,000, and this, has that translated to them being wise? Are they articulating our revolution? Are they leading us to rapid economic transformation? Are they leading us anywhere except they are leading themselves into living a lavish and a bling lifestyle? So I think, Oladele, that would be my input for this segment.
What can I say? And I often say this all the time. Africans, we are the mother of civilization. Everything stemmed from us. Our history got interrupted. We understand that. But in 2026, why are we still looking to our oppressors for solutions when they've continually, repeatedly do everything they can to keep us down? Why are we not building? We say we're intelligent people in Africa. We say we're intelligent. The sad thing is that we've been miseducated, because when the Muzungu educates you, it inculcates his own thinking in your head. So now we're thinking like coconuts. And this is what the work that we need to do. We need to decolonize our minds. Until we decolonize, we're going to keep preferring solutions that are meant for the West in Africa. This is why a lot of things are not working for us. Because I'm on LinkedIn and people follow me on LinkedIn. I'm observing because I need LinkedIn as a social experiment just to see how people think. And you can see Black people break down all the analysis of how this works, that works, and everything works. But when it comes to Africa, they still use the same parameters, which makes no sense. Because the reality is, just look at the people on the street. How has what you're saying impacted their lives? If it hasn't done that, then it's not working. That tells me that whatever you're doing is not working. That means you need to go back to the drawing board. Look at Africa and its dynamic setup. How can we build systems that are going to work for our paradigm by us? And this is where we go back to the Pan-African, Afrocentric, authentic thinking. Sadly, most Africans, like I said, have been educated by the Muzungu. So it's difficult for most of us to think that way. But Khanyisile has done it. I've done it. Unduku's done it. Because we looked inwards. We looked at everything around us thinking, it does not make no sense. What we're doing doesn't make no sense. We need to re-educate ourselves. We need to look and start doing things differently. And we've done that. So what am I saying? Africans, your Western education helps to a certain extent. But for you to be useful and be impactful on the continent, you need to re-educate yourself. You need to basically think about being Afrocentric, being Pan-African in your thoughts. Like we said, capitalism is not working for our benefit. It's not working. Neoliberalism, it's not working. What's the other one? There's another one that we use. But all these isms are not working. But what can we do to build our continent up? Let's go back to Ubuntu.
Socialism ain't going to work.
So yeah, all these isms are not working. But we Africans, we have our way. The challenge is the fact that we, and I said this before, we do not want to do the work. We do not want to do the work that's going to make these things happen. We'd rather fit into the copy and paste of the West because it's easy to do that. And a few of you are going to, you're going to get some benefit from some of the crumbs that you're going to get from that. But the real work is building Afrocentric institutions that are going to work for the collective benefit for everybody. This is what we Africans are not doing. We just don't want to do it. You get your degrees in whatever you studied, and you just, you become the authority of what you studied, but you become a master of none because whatever you study is not working for Africa. And that's my thoughts on that.
Before you go to the questions in the comments, let me say something, and I'm sure Khanyisile will have something to say about this. Something else I'm noticing about our people as we go along, as far as preparedness, right? And looking at Iran today, is we're too fragile. And we need to stop being fragile. Like I'm telling you, my people right now, you need to stop being fragile. If you're bothered by words that come out of my mouth, you're not ready for the war that we are in right now. Words that come out of my mouth should not bother you because this is a tactic that is used by these enemies, embarrassing people. That's a tactic that they use. They use words. They send you words. That's what COINTELPRO did. It sent one Black Panther unit fake letters from another claiming that that person had said something about the leadership of the other. Their ego, they were offended and they took action, right? They started having infighting because of words. Words. Iran is not going to move like that. No, they're not going to fall victim to words. They're not going to be in a meeting and be pissed off that you called them a monkey or this. We know. Now we know this is what they call us, monkey. We know we're not monkeys. We know they call us illiterate, incapable, criminals. We know we're not that. And so now when we sit at that table, when we're fighting the war, they will talk and we will laugh and we will keep pushing. They will talk. And when people are trying to teach you and they have to diagnose you correctly, stop being offended. Because you have to be diagnosed for you to get treatment. You have to, so for me, fragility is a problem we have. If you're raising children, raise them to be, and I'm not saying completely, everything is balanced, right? I'm not saying completely dismiss your emotion. This is not what is being said. The level of fragility we are in now is making us very useless human beings. Very useless human beings. And we need to start building people who are strong emotionally, who have emotional maturity. And we ourselves need to start correcting ourselves and rebuilding our emotional maturity.
Absolutely.
I don't know if the two of you have something to add before the question, because this is something I'm noticing that is a problem. And if that's our weakness.
Yeah. You want to go, okay?
Yeah, I think I want to add to that by a simple joke. I'm walking in the mall with my husband, and he looks around and he's like, something wrong has happened to our nation. When we grew up, at least up until childbirth, you then started developing what we call umkhaba, or a tummy. And then you started putting on weight. And he's like, it's no longer the case. You know, you look at primary school kids, you look at high school kids, you look at what's called young women who have not given birth. And you are like, no, that's not supposed to be your weight. And my sister Ndugu is right. If we point out these things, they're saying, oh, you're body shaming. No, we are not body shaming. We are saying something is wrong. Notice it. Either it's in the food or it's in the water, but something is fundamentally wrong. That's not how we used to be. Something has changed. So my husband is like, no, you know, white people, we've grown bigger in stature, but we have grown dumber mentally. They have been engineering this slowly but surely, because a matriculant of 2025 cannot stand on a podium and compare to a matriculant of 1980, and that was even apartheid, of 1981. You know, now we say our kids can't read or write until a certain level. But our kids don't speak mother tongue. They can't even write their own mother tongue. So, you know, slowly, people must imagine that as they wake up, go about their own journey, do whatever, go to bed at night, attend that party, do that. There is a certain select group of people sitting somewhere, and then they're going to say it's a conspiracy theory. There's a certain group of people sitting somewhere watching this global show and saying, okay, this year, this is what we want to happen. Next year, this is what we want to happen. So for me, I think what my sister Ndugu is saying is they introduce all these rights that say you can't tell me what to do because then you are shaming me. But at the same time, they are destroying us. So they are putting you in a difficult position because you can't point out the wrong because people say are criticizing us. But if you don't point out the wrong, then we are all just going below rock bottom, not even to rock bottom. So I think that would be my addition.
Yeah, my take on that is basically fragility, like Ndugu said. We've been so westernized that we can't think as Africans no more. So the fragility, the white fragility, is now being transferred to blackness. Because we're in the system, and the systems don't do this, don't do that. Now we're transferring it to ourselves. Because in this, and I always say this, in this war, we need to call each other out. Because if we not call, and this is the problem with Africa today, because we don't call each other out. We see evil and we just pretend it's just it's happening in my tribe, so it's okay. If it's happening in another tribe, then you say, oh yeah, then you call it out. So corruption becomes tribal. So this is one of the challenges that we're facing as Africans. It doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what tribe, whatever. If you see evil, call it out. This is what we call accountability and responsibility to one another. This is what Africa had in the past, where we had checks and balances. This is why the rulers, our ancestors in those parts, that's why they didn't get away with things like this. What we're getting away with now. Look at your leaders today. Look at what they're getting away with. And a lot of you will just sit back there and be whinging and complaining. To go to your local government chairman, to go to talk and have a conversation, you won't do it. Because when you're talking about accountability, it starts from your local government chairman before it goes bigger. But the local level, you're not doing nothing. And then you're shouting at the big one at the top. But what are you doing at local level? So for me, it's just down to accountability. Do not let people get away. When you see evil, call it out for what it is. Irrespective if they're going to get hurt or not. But they need to get hurt because they're hurting somebody around you. So you need to call it out for what it is. Let's call it spade a spade. Let's stop pussyfooting around like the West keeps doing it. And this is what we do in the West. You know, they can't criticize this, you can't criticize that. And that's why things are getting worse. Anyway, that's my rant on that one. Let's go to the questions, guys. Okay, the first question here says, okay, how can we turn this? Let me put it up there. He said, how can we turn this around? How can we protect Africans from the bullish imperialist propaganda? Imperialist propaganda. How can we turn this around? How can we protect Africans from the bullish imperialist propaganda? I think we covered that. You want to say something to that?
Yeah, firstly, it's going to be a process. It's a war. I think that's why I'm wearing a combat
very
medallion
appropriate.
today.
I see that.
It's a war. It's not simplistic. It's not a switch you will press on and off. It's going to take a concerted effort from everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody, every citizen, every leader. Because the first thing we need to start demanding for is decolonized education. How come I can't lay my hands on a history textbook, high school history textbook in our African countries, not just South Africa? That tells me in 365 BCE, that's before the Common Era, before Christ, for those who are Christian, these were the societies in Africa and this is what they were doing. How come we teach history with the start of colonization? How come we have not changed the acronyms that are used in history to describe some of our people or some of our leaders? And how come we are still teaching our African students based on Western-centric or Eurocentric, I think I'm looking for a word, psyche or DNA? You see, Africans are a collective people. So this individual testing, you will sit as an individual and write a test and get 90% and be happy when the rest of the class has gotten 40%.
Fails.
You are the better of the lot. It's not African. We are a group of people. That's why even our drama, I studied drama in my undergraduate. They tell you, once you start doing African drama, they tell you the fundamental difference between African drama and Western drama is that it is participatory. So when Hugh Masekela climbs the stage and he plays, we stand up and we sing along. Sometimes he even stops and he allows us to sing. I see some Western artists that copy that too. When it's a drama on stage, theater, and they are acting, if they're doing something that we know, we say the words with them, we stand. And for a country like South Africa where there are white people, you see how irritated they become because they are wanting to watch. So you're standing in their way, you know. So for me, that's the first thing we need to do. We need to start calling out this colonial education that's reducing our students to imbeciles. African students don't fail because they are dumb. They fail because we are using a Eurocentric system to teach them. That is not wired with their DNA. That's why we have to work twice as hard. So we need to start looking for ways in which the African-based curriculum was taught through we are the oldest race on earth. So right from before the Common Era, that's before Christ, right up to now, what methods did we use? And I can tell you from the top of my head, one of them was collective learning. We do better in group scenarios. We do better in oral testing than in written testing. I mean, people don't want to be writers, Oladele. They just want to be competent to know that they know that knowledge. So we should subject people like Khanyisile and Nduku who want to be writers to written methods because they want to be writers. Not every African wants to be a writer. So for me, that would be the first thing we need to do to turn this around. But secondly, parenting people, parenting. What do you teach your children?
Yeah.
What do you teach your children? I mean, it sounds like we are being petty. But I have a 25-year-old who has never done anything that is artificial on the head except braids. And even then, we discovered a week ago that even those braids are actually not healthy for you. That hair's got pesticides, insecticides, it's treated,
it's
whatever.
horrible.
Thank God she's only braided 3 times in her entire life. She's 25. But we were having this conversation yesterday, and she was like, when I found this, I was just like, my God, I hope that 3 times of about 3 months each has not done irreversible damage in terms of what. And a African woman found this. But again, leads me to the third thing we need to start doing. We need to start our own, start trusting our own resources. Because a clever black, that's what we call them in South Africa. A clever black will say, oh, who's this woman? You know, BBC has not reported on this. It is not Felyun or Mark Ewart who's saying this, you know, who's she, an African American telling us. So, which is the third thing we need to do. We need to start trusting our own resources as Africans and listen to one another. I think I'll leave it there for now, my brother.
Yeah, I think for me, Mama Kay said it all basically. I think for us, Africans, we have everything. We keep saying this. Me and Ndugu say this all the time. We have everything. We have basically everything. The only thing we haven't got is ourselves to make it work. Because we're taking ourselves away from who we are to be what we're not. Because this is basically how they want us to portray ourselves on our continent. So we have everything that we need to make our continent work. So in terms of propaganda, we don't need to look at them to be whole. We don't need to look outwards to look inwards. All we got to look within ourselves, Africans. That's what we got to do. Let's start believing in ourselves. The moment we start believing in ourselves, away from the miseducation that we've received, there's going to be a mindset shift. The biggest challenge facing Africans today is basically the miseducation and the religious indoctrination. Those two things are the key. If we can get away from that, and all you clever blacks that are watching this today, if you can do those two things and be conscious about doing those two things, the imperialist propaganda will never get to you, because all three of us here, we see the propaganda a mile away. We see it because we've studied. So when they put some bullshit out there, we can actually call it out straight away. That's because we've taken the time to actually study. And like Unduku always says, study your enemies. I've studied them. I've lived with them. I grew up with them. I've taken the time to study them, to know how their psyche works. And when you do that work, you become self-aware. You'll understand how they move. And then you can move retrospectively in terms of, okay, this is how we're strategically going to move as Africans. But as long as you keep believing and keep looking to your oppressors or the Muzungus for solutions, guys, the propaganda is going to continue to work and infiltrate the system. And this is basically where we need to push out to get push back. That's all I have to say on that. Nduku, what's your thoughts? Before we go to the next, we got quite a few questions there. Let's go.
Yeah, directly to the question is, this is the work we're doing, right? On Kumbukeni, on the Imagine Alkebulan, Mama Khanyisile. We are educating. We learn, we share. We learn, we share. I'm reading books now. Every time I'm posting what I read, I'm posting paragraphs. This is all we can do. And then for you who are watching us, share these channels. Subscribe. That's like, it's as simple as that. You don't sit there and be worried, oh, what is she doing? Why does she have to get money? What about me? All that. No. Whether Nduku gets money or not, share the information so that it gets to our people. Because eventually we will all get money. And it's not dollar money. We will all have good, healthy food. We will all have healthy shelter. We'll all have land that we can live on. We'll all have peace, right? And we'll be able to defend it if we work together right now and support those who are doing the work that needs to be done. That's the first thing. Second thing, let's return to nature. I was laughing because as you were talking about the chemicals and everything, back in the day when my parents lost their jobs at an early age, and so we moved to stay with my grandma in the village. And after high school, I used to go during the holidays. I would go to my aunt in the city because I didn't want to be in the village, right? The village was boring. But then after high school, my parents intentionally said, you're going to stay here. You're not going to the city. You're going to stay here. And so I stayed there and I was hanging out with my cousins and we would walk. That's the thing about being in the village, is walking, and it's a lot of fun, right? But we did not have lipstick, right? We didn't have lipstick and we wanted to wear lipstick. So we would take Vaseline and crush flowers. There's a bougainvillea flower, crush them and mix them with a Vaseline and have lipstick. And I was like, yo, back then we saw that as a shady thing. This is hood, this is so backward. But no, this is what we need to return to, minus the Vaseline. We need to return to the shea butter that you mix with flowers. You mix with natural soil. We color our hair with soil. We color our hair with henna. We use sisal, the plant, to braid our hair. Natural. We need to return to nature because nature will not fail us. We need to walk away from the lab. This is what has failed us. You all think progress is a big thing, is a good thing. You don't want to return back to your old ways. Progress has brought us cancer.
Yeah.
Progress has brought us genetic disforming and changing and all that. People are getting
Autoimmune diseases,
immune diseases because
diabetes,
right.
high blood pressure,
allergic
hypertension.
reactions.
We need to return to nature, my people. We need to
Yeah.
return to nature. That's it for me.
Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question says, I'm posting it up there. It said she wants all four of us to comment on how intertwist and false narratives entertained within the Abrahamic faith are at a theological core of Christian, Judaic, Islamic hatred.
Oh my God, that's a whole broadcast.
Yeah, that's a big one, man. Yeah, okay.
I would just say, my brother Oladele, we need a broadcast on that one,
Yeah.
but also balance that question. It is one-sided. Abrahamic faiths hate each other. It's very strange, ne? All three are called the religions of the book. They are supposed to have come from the same source. But three of them have fought bitter wars in this world that have
which we're
resulted
seeing right now, actually.
in whole-scale genocide or ethnic cleansing of people. The three religions together have killed more people than any state could have killed, by the way. So I think it's a podcast on its own, but it shouldn't be one-sided. It should cover all three. And when we say all three, for those who are listening, it's Judaism, it's Christianity, it's Islam, all three together.
Okay, so that's a podcast for another day. Okay.
No, but
all right, let's go.
Quickly,
Yeah,
Oladele,
go on.
literally, the war in Israel is that they are justifying Palestine on religious right grounds.
It is.
But the thing that we need to understand is we've committed suicide on our minds, right? Our intellectual capacity has been taken control of. And Oladele and I are in a space where there's a crazy woman, Mama Khanyisile, crazy Jesus woman. Insanity. And this is all I can say about religion. It is insanity when you cannot think logically and critically analyze things. You are insane. And that's what religion does to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it makes you critical
Just
thinking.
quickly also, so is the war of Israel and America against Iran currently. It's a religious war also.
It is.
Because it's an Islamic state. And I mean, that's why they don't care how many people die in Iran. It's not people who died, it's Muslims who died. So is the war in Palestine also. Israel doesn't care because it's not just Palestinians, it's Muslims by and large. You know, there is a sizable portion of Christians,
and they are the
but
chosen
again,
people.
still they are not Judaists, they are Christian. You know, and the word they have in Judaism for anyone who is not a Jew is that we are goyim. So, like, we are nothing.
Okay, next question. Okay, this one's for you. How will Iran conflict affect Africa? I think we've covered this. We covered this actually.
Well,
you want to touch on
already, and it's already affecting us economically. I mean, I was shocked to hear that a lot of our, what was it?
The gas prices.
Our fertilizer.
Fertilizer. Oh, yeah, fertilizers, yeah.
Yes. So it means it's going to affect farming. Oil, it's going to affect petrol prices, diesel prices. And when that goes up, public transport goes up. When that goes up, prices of commodities go up, you know. And it's also going to affect us in terms of foreign relations. I mean, countries that will openly side with Iran will be threatened by the madman Trump. That's what I call him. Trump simply belongs in a mental asylum. Just his psychology is missed, you know.
Psychotic.
Yeah, he's even past psychology. It's psychiatry. He needs a psychologist plus medicine to assist. So it's going to affect us also in that manner. That's why you see some African countries are not even openly saying we support Iran because they don't want to anger Trump. So it's going to affect us in many ways. But for me, the way in which it has affected us, and I asked the Minister of Defense in South Africa this in Parliament, and I could see that I'm talking past her, you know, with due respect to her. there is no ground force that has entered Iran currently, but look at the devastation. Meaning, war has become high tech. War is in the 21st century. So I was asking our minister, does it still make sense for us to, because this is how our defense force is structured, we have a very large army. I'm talking numerics, and that would also be equipment too, because equipment matches the number of personnel. So we have a very large army, followed by Air Force, followed by even a smaller Navy. And I was saying to her that was okay before 94, because the apartheid state was fighting a land war. They were fighting us internally activists, but they were also fighting SWAPO in Namibia, which was the liberation movement there. Because remember, they were also in charge of Namibia. They were given Namibia after 1945, when Germany was punished. Namibia was given to Britain, and by default, when Britain left, it fell under South Africa. They were fighting a war in southern Angola because SWAPO was using southern Angola to enter Namibia. So they needed this large-scale army. They were fighting a war in frontline states in Eswatini, Lesotho, wherever we liberation movements were there. So it made sense. I was asking her, in the light of what we are seeing in Iran, what are the lessons? Shouldn't we be investing in tech? Shouldn't we be reducing the army to make it lean and mean? I wasn't saying to her, let's not have an army. Reduce it to match the requirement of the 21st century, but ensure that the Air Force and the Navy also matches the 21st century. So for me, that would be the greatest lesson I am learning from Iran. That's in terms of how it affects us. That's how it affected me. I looked at Iran and I was like, the defense force strategies of most African countries, which is why I say are still in the 19th or 20th century, where we think we are going to fight a land invasion. The man and the rifle, the man and the rifle, or the man and the pistol, or the man and the submachine. No, war has left us behind. Warfare or war doctrine has left us behind. Thank you, Olandele.
Okay, let's go to the next one, Nduku. You want to add to that, Nduku?
Yeah, quickly, Mama Khanyisile, also, like, if we weren't so dependent on their economies, if we weren't so dependent on their
Brilliant. Yeah.
if we weren't so dependent on their oil, it wouldn't affect us. And that's what Russia did. They weren't dependent on, when sanctions came on Russia, Russia was chill. They were still, their agriculture was blowing up. They were doing just fine. So if we go back to nature.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. And I was thinking that, sis.
Right? If all of a sudden, gas prices are high, we're walking. We're Africans. We walk. We're going to walk. We're going to walk. We're going to take rides with each other. We will share the cost. If we return to our communal ways, these things will not affect us. That's the thing. We have to make ourselves. You cannot attach yourself to your oppressor's ways, because every time your oppressor falls, you will fall too.
Yeah, good point. I agree. And I agree. I was actually thinking that before you said it, actually. I was actually thinking it because, like we said in the past, we have everything, guys. So whatever happens to them should not affect us. If we self-sustainable, we could be self-sustainable because we have everything we have. But for some reason, we're trying to attach, we're trying to get the dollar and the pound. We're trying to, link ourselves.
We must segregate. 100%.
Yeah, we're trying to get the dollar and all those things. And guys, why do you need the dollar when you have the resources in your continent? We need to de-dollarize the African continent. We need to basically have an Afro currency. Let's trade amongst ourselves. Let's be self-sustainable and self-reliant. We can basically, and I can categorically say this, with my chest up high, that we don't need anybody else. We've got everything we need. If we need expertise, we have the diasporans who can bring the expertise in. And if we try that, it's not there, then we can seek help based on our own terms.
It's a nuanced conversation, because if we choose that, like Iran has chosen, we will be attacked, and therefore we must have the conversation on defense.
That's it. Absolutely. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay.
So before you go to the next one, I'm gonna disappear for a second.
Okay. All right, no worries. Okay, no problem. Okay, me and you, Nduku, we can deal with this one before Mark comes back. I think we definitely going to talk about this one. What risks do the US Africa health data deals pose to African data sovereignty and security and self-determination? This one's a big one. This is the one that happened. It's been happening, and then
you signed it. Yep.
John Mahama basically did a deal with Europe when they were doing the declaration for the transatlantic whatever. Behind it, he was doing a deal on the same day.
So call me crazy, Oladile, when I say what the hell did Mahama do for African people on that day? Call me crazy. And I'm one among very few people who are questioning that, because Black people, again, we are so vulnerable,
Emotional.
so reactional, and we celebrate scraps. I get it. A lot of people have worked hard for reparations. I get that. I get that we are deserving of reparations. I get that we are deserving of this being identified as the worst crime against us. But if the same person who goes and says that speech goes and signs a document that puts a military base on African ground and risks our well-being, why would I celebrate that? Please make it make sense to me. Why? Do you all know Ghana to be sovereign today? Ghana to have declared that the United States is a criminal state and they're no longer doing business with them? So until that happens, I'm sorry, I'm not celebrating nothing.
I agree. And we're talking about African sovereignty here. And based on the conversation that we've been having, and this basically ties into everything. Look at what Ibrahim Traore has done and Burkina Faso has done. They basically built their own data center in Burkina Faso. So they basically severed ties from the West. So the West cannot take the data. They can't take the data. They basically build data centers in Burkina Faso to keep their own data. They've kept it sovereign. So that means the West has no access to sensitive data of the citizens. But look at the rest of the continent. We're giving our data away. Kenya, Nigeria, and a few have done it. We're giving our data away, our sensitive data away to our oppressors. And what do you think they're going to do with it? It goes back to the same thing we're talking about. We need to decolonize our solutions. Our enemies cannot be the ones that we go to bring us solutions. This is what I say this. We Africans are lazy. We're lazy in the terms that we don't want to do the groundwork that's going to help us build what we need for ourselves. We'd rather do the copy and pasting or just go for the crumbs. But what Ibrahim Traore is showing us is giving us a blueprint of what we all should be doing. But stupidly, most of us just ignore what he's doing. Like it's insignificant, and they're still going back to the solutions that are detrimental to us. So Africans, make it make sense.
Can I add this, Oladile, as Mama Khanyisile comes so that she can talk about it because she's more familiar with this? Here's the thing. Traore has declared this enslavement of our people as a big crime several times. We haven't sat here and celebrated it as, did you hear what he said? We all celebrate. No, we're waiting for it to be done at the UN. That's what we're waiting for it to be done at the UN. This is what apparently it has to be done in a white space so that we can validate it. That it cannot be done in Burkina Faso by one of us who is clearly showing that we need to segregate and put ourselves first, who has said this is a crime and did 6 months when he came in, 6 months of investigating the criminals and came back to his people and told them what has happened. We ourselves have declared it the worst crime against our people and against humanity. Why do we wait for the UN that's going to do nothing and allow a puppet show? Mama, can you speak on it?
Yeah. We are trained and it's upheld through education and the media, through advertising, through what the doctor tells you when you go to a health facility. We are trained to believe in whiteness, sadly. And I know most people think, oh, it's only in Kenya or South Africa where there's a sizable, or Namibia where there's a sizable amount of white people. No. It's an African disease because we have not decolonized. That's the thing. So in our minds, we are still colonized. And I did say neocolonialism is mental and economic and cultural slavery. So yes, Ibrahim Traore has declared a lot of things in Ndugu. He is even the first country to institute a public holiday for African spirituality. but it's not celebrated. We don't even talk about it. None of our leaders are even going to Twitter. He's doing a lot. I mean, as a young man, that an old man like President Ramaphosa will not even be able to achieve in their lifetime, but they are not even beginning to copy from him because it is just another black man that's doing it. But if Burkina Faso can have a president who's white, I'll tell you how many African leaders will start copying what that president is doing. So in the question that came, what can be done? I did say we need to start listening to each other and we need to start recognizing each other as a repository of knowledge and as a source of knowledge. So I think, my sister Ndugu, that's the point you are raising right there. For the 3 years that the regime of President Ibrahim Traore has been in power, he's done so much that you can write at least 3 or 4 volumes. If you look at agriculture, if you look at education, if you look at spirituality, if you look at this, if you look at that, if you look at defense, there's so much that can be gleaned from there already as a roadmap for a revolution in our countries, but it is not happening because it's another black person that's doing it. We are waiting for the UN to tell us. We are waiting for I don't know if I'm still in. Oh yeah, we are waiting for the UN, we are waiting for CNN, we are waiting for BBC to tell us that. So yeah.
Okay, what's the next question there? Where are we? Okay, we've done that one. We got a couple more. For the whole panel, any thoughts of the Israel that bought so much land in Kenya? What did the panel think about the ramifications of this? Yeah.
That's all we do.
Oh, Mama Kani. So, Mama Khanyisile, I'm very much against shortening our names, right? So here we are in a world where we are watching. Oladele, why are you putting me center front? The accused nation of Kenya. Come on, Kenyan. In a world where we are witnessing Israel taking over a land from a people and then claiming it to be theirs and taking away their rights and bombing them and bombing them and bombing them. And then we turn around, not we, the Kenyan people, but the Kenyan puppets turn around and give them land. You immediately, as Kenyan people, have to declare that person. And by the way, there is a part in the constitution that can declare him our enemy and take him out as a president. But guess what? We're not operating by law anymore because we have decided to operate by Western laws, right? And if you take out a president, that's a crime. No, but the president is taking out all of you. The president is literally putting you in a position where you'll all be taken out. So inviting Israeli to settle on your land, we know Israelis from evidence, if they don't get their way, they bomb you. So why would you invite them on your land, right? And so therefore, if I have voted for someone and I see Kenyans, man, in the groups that I am in, talking about two-term. Two-term, so in Kenya, there are two things. There's one-term. One-term means we want this person for one term. Ruto is going to only serve for one term, so we're getting him out. That's one term. Two-term means that he's going to come again for a second term. And there are Kenyans who are pushing the two-term movement, who are saying they're going to vote Ruto. If we were in the right mindset, where we were standing by Ubuntu, we would declare all those people enemies. And we would put together a strategy to deal with those enemies, whatever it will be, to protect the rest of the Kenyan people. That's how we would move. In a world that was ideal, where we were functioning as Africans grounded on Ubuntu, everyone who's a two-term and Ruto himself would be declared enemies. Everyone who sells African land to Western foreigners who have shown hostile ways of living with people would be declared an enemy. Like there's no, oh, let's sit and think about it. What if? No. Black and white. And I'm glad I'm using that. White, move aside. Black, we stand for Ubuntu. It's as simple as that. So these are betrayers of the people, is what they are. These are betrayers of the people, and it's evident in their actions because they have seen. It is not that Ruto is not paying attention to the same geopolitics that we are paying attention to. Israel is not known to move well on land that they've occupied. They bomb those who get in their way so that they can have access of resources. Israeli land, by the way, if you see pictures of people who've gone to Israel, it is barren land, most of it. It does not produce agriculture, most of it. And so they need land that produces agriculture. So they're coming to take your land for resources. And they have their own population, and they will put themselves first. So they will take land. They've taken a huge part in Nakuru, huge part, to produce food for their people. And if you get in the way, they will bomb you. So there you go.
Yeah. We basically, and this is the thing, Africans, guys, when you welcome the enemies to come eat in your land, history tells us what they've done. They don't stop there. They took over. And the moment you give them an inch, they take them out. So the moment you welcome them, you can see, like Mama Kanshi was saying today, was it 83% of the South African land is in the hands of the white people?
Yes.
Well, that tells you, that basically tells you exactly what you need to know. So the Muzungu controls basically majority of South African land. And what's the population of the white people in South Africa? Probably 15%, I don't know.
13%.
13%.
Between 12 and 13.
And they control almost 80% of the land in South Africa. So we cannot give them the chance to basically take our land. And this is basically, and we're talking about the Land Act. The Land Act is something they created. We never used to have those rubbish. You know, land was ancestral. It was family. It was given to, it was given to us. Divided to people for communities to feed themselves. So they bring all these laws, and they use those laws to basically, validate whatever they're doing. You want to say something there, Mama Kay?
Yes, land is not a commodity in African spirituality and African culture. Land cannot be sold. You can't have written title deeds over land because it is ancestral. We just believe that your people have lived here, and this is where you buried your people, so the soul of your people are here. Because land is an altar for us. That's where we practice our spirituality. That's where we practice our rituals. And also land was communally owned. It's even a misinformation and a disinformation to say that the king or the chiefs or whoever owned the land. No, they were custodians.
They were custodians,
with them in terms of that land protection. They never owned it, which is why if you go to Eswatini today, even KZN, the whole of rural South Africa, the little land that Africans own, you know that when I say the Tshabalalas, they are found in that area. When I say the Kumalos, we know they are in that area. So we owned land communally at clan level, and then at ethnicity level, and then at nation level. So it was never a commodity, which is how most of the land was built out of our kings and our queens, by the way. Because for us, if someone came to a king or a queen and they say Ngiyakhonza in Zulu, which means I came to worship here at your what do we call it? At your what's the word I'm looking for? At your palace. I came to worship at your palace, meaning I subscribed by the culture and the ethics and the values of your people. And then we give you a piece of land. In our minds, it was not now that land is yours. Now you have sole right. It was like with our people. You are living here in our midst because you have shown the respect to go and worship at the palace of the person in the reigns, meaning you subscribe to our culture. That's how most of our land was taken, apart from that which was taken at gunpoint. So it's different values, the Western value and outlook to land and the African value and outlook to land. So for today, for any white person to say, I own land in Kenya and they are there, or I own land in Nigeria, or I own this, it is so un-African. So if Africans can reinstill that in their minds, land is not a commodity. It is not something, it's not chewing gum. You can't just be giving land like chewing gum at a bus stop in the moment, going to school or going to work.
Yeah, thanks. And land is the most valuable thing that we Africans can actually keep. So don't give it away. If you have land, keep it in your family. Let it carry on. I have family land in my family that I'm doing the work. I've lost the side of my dad's side got sold off, but on my mom's side, I'm fighting tooth and nail to make sure we keep it. So if you have it, keep it, because it's the most valuable thing. It's valuable than money. Okay, let's go to the last question there because we're running out of time now. It's almost 2 hours now. Okay, how do we
Yes.
accelerate the process of creating the conditions for the evolution of Pan-African leaders? How can we accelerate the process of creating the conditions for the evolution of Pan-African leaders? That's a very, very good question.
Media. Because I've covered education before. So side by side with a Pan-African education, which we must all fight for, or Pan-African curriculum, we need to start investing in Afrocentric media outlets, not rich Africans buying soccer clubs or throwing lavish parties and eating sushi from naked women's bodies, and those people are in parliament today. Yeah, eating sushi from a naked woman's body to show that you have money. We need to stop indulging in stupidity and put our money where our mouth is or where our heart is. Media is a big part of 21st century culture. Media is what informs and shapes the mind, which is why advertising companies will pay hundreds of dollars just for a 1 minute advert that comes on at a certain time, repetition. It gets engraved at the back of your mind always. Unconsciously, I sing adverts of things I don't even like or even eat or drink, but I sing those adverts because they come up so often in whatever you're watching. So the media is a big thing. But apart from that, the media will assist us to tell our stories. Kumbugeni, Emerging Alkebulan, that are hosting this show right now. We need to support you to get to a point where you are big media outlets. It is said that at least 86% of the world media is owned between 6 Jewish companies. That's power.
Yeah.
They determine what you hear, when you hear it, how long it lasts as an item, if it's going to be breaking news or just a piece of news at the end of a bulletin or at the back of a newspaper. So we need to start thinking print media, visual media, all sorts of media, and we truly need to start building our own. We have Al Jazeera, it's Qatar. I see the Indians have a station now on DSTV. Everyone is investing. That's what BBC is, and Sky News for Britain. That's what CNN is for America. That's what the one, forget even the name, I think it's France 24 is for the French people. The German have their own. We are the only ones who do not have stations that tell our stories. And where we have, it's a perpetuation of the propaganda of the leaders that we have, who are misleaders, not even proper leaders. There's a station parading now on DSTV, Can I Warn Africans? I detest it with a passion. And even their advert say, Africa, where we tell African stories, African owned. I think it's a French 24. It's just that it's in English and it covers only African news. Forget its station number what, but it comes after the Chinese one, after CGTN. I think 2 stations after CGTN. I mean, who are you fooling people? That's not an African station. It's a French-owned station. It's actually part of France 24. It's just that it broadcasts in English and it focuses on African issues. But they can make that claim because we're the truly African. I think I'll leave it there, my brother and sister.
Thank you very much.
Africa News, that's what they call it. Africa News. Owned by Africa, telling African stories. What African stories?
Yeah, thank you very much. Ndiko, you want to add anything to that? So just let's close this down because we've been at 2 hours now. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Final words.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think everything we talked about during this session is what we should look at, right? We talked about fragility. That has to go. The question again, you took it off.
We get the question again. Let me bring it back. Give me a second. Where is it?
But as you bring it up, I was just thinking about Professor Jang, who we were told is not a professor, and who was confronted by a white man that he's not a professor. And I wish he had watched Malcolm and seen how Malcolm responds to white people who ask stupid questions and point out stupid things, right? Like the white man who said to Malcolm, did you go to change your name in a court of law? And Malcolm said to him, did you go to call yourself John in a court of law? So why should I go to a court of law to change my name? Like, white man, please stop being stupid with me. So the one thing I just realized is in all the analyses that are being done by these professors and doctors, and Africa is underestimated. None of them is saying what the position of Africa will be. We are underestimated. We're not even in the conversation. And they're not doing it intentionally. It's just that they're in a conditioned mindset where to them, only these entities, Iran, China, Russia, the US matter. We're underestimated. No one is doing an analysis, at least not publicly, because if they do it publicly, they'll empower us. So I'm sure they're doing it behind closed doors. If Africa rises, how does the picture look like? No one is doing that analysis, but we must do that analysis. If Africa rises, what does the picture look like for everyone? Right?
You know what, Imduku, and I'm going to tie what you just said. I'm going to tie it to what Mama Khanyisile said. This is basically where we need to have our own channels where we can put our thoughts out there, so we can actually put our own Afrocentric analysis on record.
Things
on record in our perspective, away from the Muzungu gaze. Because we have thoughts, we can think about things, and whatever we say doesn't have to tie into what they want. They're their own. They've got their thoughts, we've got ours, and our thoughts has to be independent of what they're thinking, because we're African, and that's part of the decolonization process.
If Africa studies its enemy like Iran has done for 25 years, and like China did, if Africa builds an intelligence gathering institution that is not influenced or partnering with its enemies, if Africa removes all the bases from Africa, if Africa unites and starts working together despite the differences, if Africa starts growing its own food, go on, Mama Khanyisile.
I was just saying, if Africa can understand that not all Africans are kinfolk. Russia is white, but Russia understands that the West is not the friend of Russia.
Exactly.
And they've accepted it. Yeah. These people can be white like us, but they are the enemy of Russia. They are not our friends because they hate us, because they don't want anything good to happen to Russia. They want us to be under their domain. So if we can come to that point in Africa where we say not all kinfolk, not all black folk is kinfolk. I cannot have someone come to South Africa and call them a Pan-African, my sister Nduku, sell drugs, prostitute South African women, shoot at our police, do all these things. And then when you defend them, you say, it's a fellow brother, it's a fellow sister. I'm sorry, I have so many brothers and sisters. I'm not running short of them.
So if we get on that page, right, where we are disciplined warriors who understand we're at war and our priority is our people and the well-being of our people, unapologetically.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you unapologetically, because I've been in black spaces where we're building with them, and Oladele will be my witness, where I am attacked because I am the only one pushing discipline, where we have people presenting about things that they're doing, and there's harmful aspects to those things, and I'm like, no. Immediately they present, I'm like, no, we're not doing that, because there's something that shows harm to our people, right?
Capitalism.
Exactly, where there's capitalism, where someone is talking about, but I love my shoes. If I abandon capitalism, what about my shoes? I've lost friends. It is okay as long as they don't stand by our liberation and the well-being of our people. And until we get to that discipline, that's where we need to get. When we get to that discipline and we build slowly and go through the time it takes to build power, that's the analysis I want to do with my brothers and sisters.
Okay, my guys, thank you very much for being part of this broadcast. The person that sent a message from LinkedIn, I will get back to you on that, just to let you know. Okay, thank you very much, my sister. Thanks for coming. Final words. Final words, or we just leave it? We said enough.
No, we've said enough.
All right, guys.
May the ancestors, may our ancestors, because may they not rest in peace. And they are not resting in peace. They're not. Because we are a cyclical people, and therefore, if there's unrest in the physical, they have unrest in the spiritual. Because
that's where we are.
Because we are connected, and so they are not resting in peace.
They're not resting until we.
Ubuntu, from today on, if your loved one that passes on, please make sure in that memory, in that celebration, you say, "Do not rest in peace, mom. Do not rest in peace, dad. Do not rest in peace, my brother. Do not rest in peace, my child." Stay active, stay in warrior mode, even in your spiritual form, so that we can liberate ourselves. May that be.
I share.
That's why you and me are sisters, because I've said that in platforms so many. In fact, it's hard for me to attend African funerals right now. It's hard for me to go to a funeral because African funerals have become so Western. They are a church service, and then they have all these misinformation glitches like rest in peace, or he's now looking at us from heaven, and I'm just like, okay, guys, I'm out of this chat.
Anyway, thanks, guys. Finally, guys, like Unduku said earlier, please, can you subscribe to our channels, please? Very, very important. Let's build this network.
Apparently there's
please
a
subscribe.
Missed, Oladele.
Is there another question? I thought we finished.
I think it was about what... No. That we addressed, but there was a question about what do the diaspora do for us? What can the diaspora do for us?
Okay, well, okay, what's the question?
Can we have a podcast on the diaspora?
We can have a podcast on that, yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Basically, guys, if we haven't answered your questions, we're going to look through it, and then we'll have a podcast at a later date for that, because it's been at 2 hours now. So thank you very much, guys.
It's a very important topic, by the way, diaspora in the continent. Because
I think I've got a lot to say about that.
A lot of food. So can we have a podcast on it?
Good one. Okay, we're going to do that. Okay, like I said, please subscribe to your channels, help us grow our channels, and please share the content. We have so much content that's very, very educational, and that's why we do this. Education, and then use it to build. The information is priceless. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.